Dactal here. In today's how-to video, I'm going to show you how to remove small engine flywheels without using a puller. That's right. I'm going to remove it without using a flywheel puller. All you need is a pry bar or big screwdriver and a good hammer. So there are a few things you do need to know, because the ends of the crankshafts on these small engines, a lot of them are all different. And I'm going to show you the differences and how to take it off without ruining the end of the crankshaft. Take for instance this one here. This crankshaft is threaded all the way to the end, whereas this crankshaft has got threads on it, but it is machined about 3/8 of an inch at the top here where there are no threads. This crankshaft over here has a bolt going through it. It doesn't have any external threads, it's got internal threads. And this engine here has a starter clutch on it. So this shaft is sticking all the way up to about here. And then I'm going to show you how to do it on even a small 2-cycle like a weed eater or a chainsaw. So let's start with this one here that's threaded all the way to the top. You got two ways of doing it. Now if you want to go out and buy a knockoff tool, they do make a knockoff tool that threads on to the end of the crankshaft. And you would thread it all the way down and then back it off one turn. And then you pry underneath the flywheel, and then you would hit the center of the knockoff tool to remove the flywheel. Now, say you don't have the flywheel tool. You're like, I'm not going to spend the money for that flywheel tool. I got to get this flywheel off. So you take the nut that held the starter cup and everything on, you take all that off and you put the nut back on. And you make sure that the nut is flush with the end of the crankshaft, so you don't damage the threads when you hit the center of it. And you put pressure on it with the pry bar, and with a good sharp blow to the center with a good heavy hammer, give it one good whack. And voila! Crankshaft comes off, or flywheel comes off the crankshaft. All these small engine crankshafts are tapered. They're on a taper. Now I know what some of you are saying. You're going to wreck that engine, Taryl. You can't do it that way. You should just get a puller. You're going to wreck the engine. If you believe that, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. Because that's why they make this tool. It's a knockoff tool for doing it that exact way. And explain to me how I'm going to wreck the engine. Alright, on this one, we don't need to put anything on it because this is machined. So if we mushroom that out a little bit, that's not going to hurt anything, because our nut will still go on, because this is smaller in diameter than this. So again, find a good spot to put pressure on it and give it a good sharp hit to the center. Flywheel off. In the case of this engine, you're going to want to remove the bolt. Take the heavy washer off, and then you're going to want to put the bolt back in. You want to put it back in all the way. Don't hammer it down, because it's going to bottom out, but you want to get it down as close as you can. Again, find a good spot to pry. Put some pressure on it. And give it a good sharp blow to the center. We also had to take the coils off on this model. If it doesn't come off, spin it about 90 degrees. Plus, this engine not being mounted, it's kind of hard to put pressure on it. There's your dinner. There's your dinner. Now you will have flared out this bolt, so all you need to do is take it on a grinder and grind the flats a little bit so the socket will fit back on there if you mushroom it out. In the case of this one with the starter clutch, this clutch is threaded onto the end of the crank. They do make a tool, and I'll give you the number, 19244. That greatly helps in removing this. If you don't have the tool, very carefully tap on these ears. And try not to break them off. Don't try not to break these. Hit on these heavier ones to remove the clutch. And if that happens, don't worry about it. Just make sure you catch all the balls. And don't lose them. You want this clean in here. You don't want no oil or grease. You don't oil or grease that. This has got to be dry. Another thing you can do is, if you don't want this to fall apart, put 2 of the screws back in that hold the screen on. That'll hold this cover from coming off. Now again, they make a tool, a knockoff tool. And this tool has brass in the end of it, and it fits right over that. Because if you pry on this with a pry bar or screwdriver and hit the end of this, you're going to mushroom the end of that. And if you do, nothing to worry about. Just make sure you grind it down so that the starter clutch will fit back on there. This part has to fit on there smooth. So if you don't have the tool, you can hit the end of it. Just make sure that that starter clutch fits back on. Again, find a good spot to pry, and then give it a good whack. Again, this engine isn't mounted down. It helps to have somebody help you. There, I got pressure on it now. Of course, I picked the junkiest engines in my junkyard to do this on. There's your dinner. Same applies to these small engines. In the case of this Echo, it had a big piece in there for the clutch. It had the clutch part was on that side. So what you'll have to do is find yourself a nut that'll fit on there. And again, you want it flush. And sometimes, depending on what you're working on, the flywheel may be the other way where the fins are up. And it's hard to get in there with a hammer without breaking the fins off. So use a big solid bar. It don't have to be brass, it could be steel. And a lot of times you don't even have to pry on it. A lot of times you could just hold it up and then with the bar, whack the end of it. And voila, there's your dinner. Comes right off. But you see what I mean? If it was like this, you had like a chainsaw or something, and it had the little pawls in there, you're not going to be able to get in there with a hammer and beat on it without wrecking stuff. So just use a bar, good heavy bar. So, that's all there is to removing flywheel from small engine without a puller. Subscribe to this YouTube channel, Taryl Fixes All. We got a lot more educational and funny videos that you need to watch. Start binge watching them. Go to our web store to buy some Taryl apparel. Gotta be wearing this when you're working on your small engine stuff and watching the video, because I can see you. You got a camera on your computer? I'm watching you. Follow me with your hammer and your pry bar on Facebook and Instagram, but don't hit me with the hammer or stab me with the pry bar. Just follow me. In case you trip and then accidentally stab me, well, that's different. And as always, there's your dinner. Woo! We're moving a flywheel without flywheel tools.
You're gonna wreck it. You're gonna wreck those engines doing it that way. I know you will.